Boyfriend cheats with an Uber ride. How I found out. I need thoughts on this crazy-ass story. Had this gut feeling my boyfriend was cheating. I'd never pulled up to this house unannounced before, even though I'd had a spare key of his for almost a year. This particular night we had FaceTimed, and he was acting so out of character. He normally spent every Friday with me, but on this night he said he wanted to stay home and work on his music. The giveaway, though, was that he had his earrings in which he never usually wears unless he's going out. I even questioned him about it during that FaceTime, and he responded by saying he was taking selfies for his music. He never takes selfies, or ones that I know about. Anyways, I tried calling him back about 45 minutes after. No answer. Then I call again. TBH, after that first no answer, I just knew. My whole body got hot. It was about 1:45 a.m., and in my head I knew I had to go find out myself. Because if I didn't, I knew he would call me crazy in the morning. So I want to go and confirm it myself. My whole body was shaking on the ride over there. I kept trying to convince myself everything was okay, and he had just fallen asleep. But my body knew way before my mind did. I was always over at his house, and having the gate code was just super normal. So it was easy to pull into the parking lot. And with the key he gave me, I opened the front door without knocking. I knew if I knocked he would have time to hide whatever it was he could be doing. I opened the door and noticed the apartment was clean. I'd never seen it that clean, and there was a stack of Uno cards on the kitchen counter and a bottle of Crown gone. He doesn't drink. He shares this apartment with his roommate. For context. Without really paying attention to his roommate's door, I noticed his door was closed and there was music coming from his TV. I started shaking, but still hoping for the best, coping. I turned the handle to the door, and in that instant I am living in my worst nightmare. My boyfriend is laying there but naked, arms around a but naked girl waist. I'd never experienced the wind getting knocked out of me until that moment. Obviously he jumps up. I scream. Semi-blackout from rage and shock. My grandma had passed away a couple weeks prior, and the trauma all came out. I'll save the dramatics for now, but fast-forward 30 seconds, it hits me that this girl he was naked with is young. Not like 16-year-old young, but like 17 to 20-year-old young. I know that because when I look her in her face, I become fully aware that I am looking at someone close to the girls I coach who are seniors in high school. I'm just so angry at him that I don't even have the time to be mad at her. She's screaming I had no idea and saying how sorry she is because her own mom had passed recently. She said this because I kept screaming and crying about how could he do this knowing my favorite person in the whole world was gone. But here's where the night gets interesting. After about 2 minutes of throwing the girl's Victoria's Secret pink bra at my boyfriend's face, I'm like, where did she go? So I run to the roommate's door and it's locked. And I'm like, well, that's strange. Then it hits me, the roommate is also in there with someone. I become so confused because I'm friends with his girlfriend and I know that his girlfriend is out of town. So now I'm realizing both of them are cheating on us. Again, I'll save the classic dramatics, but I'm writing on here because the excuse my boyfriend used was that the roommate had met the two girls in Uber a couple days before and the roommate brought the girls over that night, and my boyfriend said he decided to say foo. CK it, and let her sleep over knowing I had a key and that I lived 20 minutes away. He's 30 years old and he can't confirm whether she was 21. Like he says she was, but when I say how do you know, he says because she was a senior in college. This was a horrible event, but like I'm still so freaked out over the age of the girls. But men foo CK girls all the time with the age gap. How worried should I be? He also claims that was his first time ever cheating on me in 2 years. What are the chances that I would know when he was cheating if that was true? Am I the biggest clown? He also drives Uber a lot during the week. And now to the next story, story 2. You'll be devastated and I'll just move on. I've been longing to spill out this story that has weighed heavily on my shoulders for some time now. Though it's been 7 years, and despite moving on and my life being better than ever, there are times when the memories resurface. I find myself getting lost in these Reddit cheating stories, a form of pain shopping. It's an unhealthy indulgence. I believe it springs from the fact that I've never had therapy or any form of closure on the entire situation. Perhaps this could be my therapy or closure. So, here we go. After a 6-year relationship, my ex-girlfriend ended things. I had been suspecting infidelity for months based on minimal evidence. I never held any accusations against her, as her supposed dishonesty was only circumstantial. I sensed something was off when she would claim to be one place on nights out, but was somewhere else entirely, was overly protective of her phone, and our romance was stagnating. Amid an inconsequential disagreement, I can't even recall what it was about, I suggested we break up, hoping to gauge her true feelings. Not an ideal tactic, but all I wanted was honesty. I was shocked when her response appeared to be one of relief, agreeing that separation was best. Since we were both drunk, I proposed we go home and talk things out in depth. Initially, she had been inclined to stay out longer and enjoy herself, a response that caught me off guard considering our relationship of 6 years had just ended, yet she craved a shot of liquor. We headed home and discussed the situation all night. In that time, I tried to see if she would admit to seeing someone else, but she wouldn't budge. I began wondering if my paranoia had led me to misconstrue the dying embers of our relationship as a sign of her unfaithfulness. She made some hard-hitting comments that night. Oddly, I don't think she intended to be hurtful. Entering a new phase of my life where I was no longer the softy hippie lefty, she stated that my new job had transformed me. It was true, I had changed. Although I still possessed socialist values, I was no longer the vegetarian who immersed himself in Billy Bragg's music and hugged trees. Then, she dealt the final blow. Through her tears, she confessed, "You'll be devastated and I'll just move on." I was speechless. It was such an odd statement to make. Fast forward to our living situation post-breakup. We had only recently bought a house together and were now living in a perpetually gloomy atmosphere. It was during this time that more signs of her alleged affair with one of my closest friends, who will hereby be referred to as POS for the purpose of this story, began to appear. One Saturday, she joined a gathering of my friends. I wasn't in the mood and decided not to attend. As the clock struck midnight, I called one of our friends to ask about the evening and how she was faring. They informed me that she and POS had left together in a taxi, which wasn't unusual since he lived near us. It was convenient for her to be dropped off en route. However, after 2 hours of waiting and worrying, I finally spotted her rounding the corner and heading towards the house. She claimed to have ridden home with POS when questioned of her whereabouts, offering no explanation as to why she had been walking instead of being dropped off directly home. When I pointed out that she had left the gathering hours ago, she dismissively stated she didn't want to talk about it and went to bed. Being unable to sleep that night due to the rising suspicion, I took her phone while she was asleep, intending to go through her messages. She must have been in a light sleep despite her drunken state and woke up asking what I was doing. I locked myself in the bathroom and started looking through messages whilst she banged on the bathroom door screaming for her phone back. I felt like an abused wife hiding from a drunk husband. I went through the messages between her and POS that went back to September. Nothing incriminating, just chit-chat, often past the time I had gone to sleep. This was bizarre to me. Yes, we were in the same friend group, but they weren't close friends. She had mentioned not liking him as a person. This made sense to me. He was a real red pillar. He had a good sense of humor and was enjoyable to hang around when watching sports or on a night out, but he sounded like a bigot when it came to discussing political issues. He had transformed into a woman hater after his only ever girlfriend broke his heart years ago. This description of him seems a bit harsh. He was reliable. He had helped us a lot when we moved into our new house. He was a builder and assisted with some problems we had inherited with the house. What stood out to me was that a lot of the messages didn't make sense, as if some parts had been deleted. Ultimately, I didn't find any concrete evidence. I unlocked the door and returned her phone. She stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. We had broken up, and I was left wondering whether she had started seeing POS before we broke up. Was this even important? Adding to the confusion, we continued sharing a bed during this time, which seems so strange in retrospect. We had a group trip to Barcelona vacation, planned in advance before everything happened. Despite everything that was going on, I decided to go along with 12 others. I was curious to see how she and POS interacted with each other. Surprisingly, I ended up having a good time and didn't see any sparks flying between them. I found myself having deep conversations with an old friend named Chelsea, not her real name, who had moved to London. We had always cared for each other, but the timing had never been right. I spent most nights at her hotel room, just laughing and joking together, nothing more. There was a significant disagreement between me and POS on the last night. He asked me to take our highly inebriated friend back to the hotel, spoiling everyone's fun. I suggested he do it if he was concerned. This led to a brawl ignited by my suspicion, although I still hadn't confronted him about it. But we decided to keep our distance, and that's how the night ended for me. Back home, Claire and her boyfriend offered me a ride from the airport, saving me from a bus and train ride. On the way, they asked how the flight was, and I admitted it was awkward but fine. Claire then casually mentioned that my ex and POS had spent the last night together, news unknown to me. Everyone assumed I knew already. This revelation set off a 6-month period of chaos, during which they insisted nothing was happening between them while trying to rebuild their reputations with our mutual friends. There were many developments during this time. My ex moved out. My mother, who had also been cheated on by my father, found my ex's car parked outside POS's house. Another woman claimed POS had hit on her throughout her relationship. My ex and I tried to plan our interactions at upcoming social events, which ended in a confrontation and a series of unfounded threats on my part. Rumors circulated about me being abusive. Apparently, they originated from POS, but luckily, my ex didn't back his story. POS and I had a heated argument, resulting in more threats from me. The police warned me about acting on my threats, stressing that it could land me in jail. Despite the trauma, the officers were sympathetic and encouraged me not to ruin my life over the issue. The entire situation led to disputes, sides being taken, and alliances forming. Some believed I was overly paranoid, while others sided with me and severed ties with POS and my ex. One friend confided in me about something he noticed at a birthday party we both attended. After I left feeling unwell due to too much to drink, he noticed EX and POS dancing inappropriately together. This occurred in October, but he decided not to share this with me earlier, fearing it might cause unnecessary tension. Eventually, the culprits confessed to Tim, whom they thought was a loyalist, not his real name, claiming their relationship began only after my breakup with them. However, it seemed to have started immediately after that. Tim was deeply regretful that he initially believed their cover-up. Given the evidence I had already provided, along with their confession after months of denial, it was clear that they had been unfaithfully involved months prior. Though the whole truth may never fully emerge, the speculation and uncertainty still brought me pain. Despite this, things gradually improved. Our group of friends stopped associating with them. They moved a little further away and stopped frequenting our favorite bars and restaurants. The situation gradually got better, even though there were occasional gloomy days. Now, 7 years since the incident, which lasted longer than my relationship with them, I have moved on. I did end up having a long causal relationship with Chelsea, and it was great. Just what we both needed at the time, but wasn't meant to be. It was like long distance, best friends with benefits. I've had 2 serious relationships since then. One was a medium-term relationship that ended, but now I am in a fantastic long-term relationship with a woman I adore. I live with her, envisioning her as my future wife. What about EX and AP, you ask? Well, since all ties with them have been severed, I only hear about them once in a blue moon. According to what I've heard, they're doing amazingly well. They're still together and now even have a baby. One happy family. Good for them, right? I was hoping that karma would catch up with them, but it seems like I shouldn't bank on that. I guess it doesn't really exist. That being said, the incident occasionally crosses my mind, drawing me back into the darkness. I hope sharing this will help me find closure. Next story, Story 3. Entitled Negotiations. This is one of my favorite stories to tell, so I am sharing my first ever post here. Hope you enjoy for the entertainment value. What is the underlying entitlement? The thrill of harassing a retail worker? Just being an arsehole because you can? Seeing what one can get for less or free? This also has a bit of petty revenge mingled in from a retail hell standpoint. Story is now about 15 years old, so the specific details, prices, are quite faded at this point and are made up but close enough. My family and I were wrapping up a week-long trip to Disney World, staying at the boardwalk. Teenage kids were in the park. My parents, husband, and I were in the room doing laundry and packing up for the flight home the next day. I have yet to treat myself this trip and haven't had any ice cream. Husband agrees for the need, so the two of us head down to the Boardwalk Sweets shop. As luck would have it, the store was thankfully not crowded. It was fairly late, with one couple in line in front of us already being helped and husband and I queue up behind them. There are 3 employees working behind the counter, and all seem to be totally preoccupied by the couple in front. This is a mid to late 40s white American man and woman, both well-groomed, neatly dressed in what I would describe as preppy, with polos, sweaters tied around necks, boat shoes. The guy was wearing a Boston Red Sox's hat. She has a nice handbag. Definitely seem to be vacationers like us. We will call them Karen and Ken for ease of storytelling. I noticed that Ken is a bit agitated and is shuffling about nervously, looking from Karen, then back to me, then to the store employees and back again. It's at this point I start to pay attention to the conversation in front of me. Karen is trying to negotiate the price of an ice cream cone. In Disney World, I mean, if you need to get a discount on a dessert, maybe you don't go to Disney? We certainly aren't wealthy and saved for the trip, but 25 cents off an ice cream cone isn't life-changing in these circumstances. Karen, how much for a cone with 1 scoop? Employee, still $3.50, Karen. What about $3.25? Employee, no. Ken, shift stance repeatedly, Karen. If I get 2 scoops, can I get it at the same price? Employee, no, it would be more. Ken, glances back awkwardly, Karen. What about 1 scoop and a cup? Employee, still $3.50. Karen, can I get it for $2.50? It's at this point I realize this has been going on for a while, way before we got there, and has continued for a good 5 minutes since we arrived. All 3 employees are just staring at Karen and her antics, quite like a deer caught in headlights. Ken looks like he's going to stroke. My husband at this point bails on me. He, zero patience, doesn't need ice cream that badly and has said so before leaving. Me, on the other hand, am stubborn and completely fascinated by people watching and relationship dynamics. The laundry can wait, and I really wanted ice cream. Ken seems to be out of his league. He's more geek and less handsome than she is pretty. What's the basis of this relationship? Is it more about marrying for money or status versus love or affection? What's so important about a discount? There doesn't appear to be a financial need. I mean, I am not adverse to helping out when warranted or appreciated. Why the hard sell? So many questions. Finally, one of the employees, oldest of the 3 males, manager or owner, finally snaps out of the Karen show trance and realizes there is another customer to ask me what I want. The other 2 employees are still trying to serve Karen/Ken, and I have to step between them to be handed my cone as they are blocking the register area. I am about a foot away from Karen. Me? Thank you. How much? Employee owner. For you. No charge. Karen snaps head around to angrily stare in my face. Me takes long lick of ice cream. Karen, seething me. Thank you so much. Entitlement should never get you free ice cream, but sometimes kindness, patience, and a bit of stubbornness will.